If looks could kill, well, that's an expression we all know about, and they don't. But I've just thought, can smirks smack? Can smirks leave an absolute welt? Maybe, because today on Gen Taub Live, we have to talk about Mark Carney's visit to the Oval Office. Can you take a look at his face? He is definitely, definitely breaking the wall and looking right at the camera and smirking as Donald Trump is making an utter fool of himself. I hope that you can capture what is happening here. And I'm not proud that we have right now a mendacious moron running our entire country who now thinks he's a king. Not proud of it, but I am deeply honored when a foreign leader comes to our country and insults Donald without having to even express his thoughts into language. It was just that smirk staring at the camera. Now, let me explain to you what went down there by showing you exactly the conversation. Let's pull this clip up and you will get a feel.
As you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. And we have done that in the past. And part of that, as the president just said, is with respect to our own security. And my government is committed for a step change in our investment in Canadian security and our partnership. And I'll say this as well, that the president has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO, and us playing our full weight in NATO, and that will be part of it.
And they have.
Okay. Such a diplomat. Instead of beginning his words to Donald Trump saying, "Bitch, I can't believe I'm even sitting with you in the White House and you're never going to have Canada, and stop effing calling us the 51st state." Instead, he wound his story and he told it with metaphors and descriptors that Donald Trump could understand. Some things aren't for sale. That might have surprised him, right? But mentions Buckingham Palace. That makes sense. Buckingham Palace is something Donald Trump enjoys being part of, right? He likes monarchy. He likes pomposity. He likes containers of power, because when he's inside of a container of power, this weak, sad slug of a man, this rotting Hulk, actually feels powerful. It's like what do they call an exoskeleton, right? Most of us have spines that hold up our bodies, but there are some animals that have their skeletons on the outside. And one such animal is Donald Trump. Okay. Now, the presser was not great, even though for Donald or for Carney, even though we saw Carney with dignity telling Donald Trump to back off, that Canada is not for sale. And it uses the language, "I spoke with its owners and it's not for sale." I love this. The idea that the Canadian citizens who elected his party into office, and therefore he is the prime minister, to describe them as the owners of Canada. Whereas Donald Trump doesn't think of Americans as the owners of the United States. He thinks he is. And he's selling us off. He's selling off the United States, not cheap, but in big chunks, selling off our dignity, selling off our agencies, selling off our democracy. So let me also share with you something else that went down after Carney said, Canada is not for sale. Um, uh, Donald Trump was asked whether he might, lower the tariffs on Canada. Let's listen to what he responded.
What do you think the Prime Minister can say to you today to change your mind on tariffing Canada?
Tariffing cars?
Tariffing Canada. Is there anything he can say to you in the course of your meetings with him today that would get you to lift tariffs on Canada?
No.
Why not?
Just the way it is.
What's the first date?
Just the way it is. Just the way it is. Just the way it is. Donald Trump, with that statement, it's just the way it is, will destroy and is destroying our economy. Just the way it is. Just the way it is resulting in children dying of childhood diseases because he appointed someone who is incompetent and dangerous. But will he fire him? No, it's just the way it is. Donald Trump's attitude, well, it's just the way it is why Pete Hegseth, who is not only unqualified demonstrably for his job as defense secretary, but also, and I mean that temperamentally and given his reported background of sexual assault, he's demonstrably unqualified based on his resume and his temperament. But on the job, he's been a flippin' nightmare with chaos and leaks and using unsecured channels of communication. And now 2 aircraft carriers have lost airplanes. These are not aircraft carriers. These are now aircraft barriers. I'm sorry, it's the same aircraft carrier has lost a second fighter jet. Fell off the boat. But will he get rid of Pete Hegseth? No, just the way it is. Okay, one more thing, which is astonishing. I cannot wait to share with you from this presser, is this. I don't even want to give you a heads up, but I want to give you a little context. Remember that Donald Trump is now saying that people are going to have to buckle down and suffer. Not all people, not families, not men, not adult women, not children, but little girls. Little girls, those selfish little brats, need to stop demanding $37 and destroying our economy. They need to suck it up, get $2 and 5 pencils, and then everything will be fine. If only these rapacious little girls ruining everything and complaining would shut the F up. And if they don't, they're going to prison. Okay, so this is the context. Let's listen to what he had to say about the White House.
An honor to have you at the White House and the Oval Office. And you see the new and improved Oval Office as it becomes more and more beautiful with love. We handle it with great love. And 24 karat gold, that always helps too.
Okay. 24 karat gold, that always helps too. Look behind you at whatever the hell is glued on to that fireplace mantle. That is not 14 karat gold. That appears to be styrofoam with some kind of gold leaf paint on it. But that's not really the point. Love or money is what he's saying. And, money helps, except it's a facade. Now, remember, everyone has to sacrifice, but Donald wants 24 karat gold. He wants a new ballroom at the White House. He wants a new prison because he envisioned it. And he wants to also fight a war with Greenland. And all of this, my friends, we can afford all this. And we can have $1 trillion in tax cuts for the rich. It's all possible if only these selfish little girls wouldn't demand extra dolls for Christmas. Okay, here we go. There's more to this.
But it's been a lot of fun. We're going over some of the beautiful pictures that were stored in the vaults that were for many, many years, in some cases over 100 years.
Okay.
Thank the Prime Minister.
So Donald. So that is a little taste of what happened inside the White House, but that's not it, my friends. You know, Chekhov says, and I'm paraphrasing, partially because I don't know the original Russian, but Chekhov has let us know that the great short story writer and playwright from Russia said, you know, you don't essentially introduce a gun in the first act of a play and have it not go off later. And if looks could kill, the look I showed you was, as you know,
As you
dude, I'm sorry. I want to get the picture of that look. This is the look. This look. So when did that gun go off? Not inside the White House. It was when Prime Minister Carney left the building and was at his own presser. And this was outside. It was a beautiful day in Washington, D.C. yesterday. And there he is in front of a very fluffy microphone answering questions. And I'm not sure if you're going to be able to hear the reporter here, but listen carefully.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister Tonda McCharles, Toronto Star. I was watching your face through the meeting in the Oval Office, and I wondered what was going through your mind when the President talked about erasing the artificial border and how he criticized your predecessor and Madam Freeland.
Thank you for your question. I'm glad that you couldn't tell what was going through my mind as that was going through. With respect to the first point, the President has made known his wish.
By the way, I laughed over something. I'm going to play it again. I don't know if you heard this part. He said, "I'm glad you could not see what was going through my mind." And either that reporter who asked or a different one said, "I could." Let's play that again and I'll continue.
The first point.
Sorry, here we go.
Thank you for your question. I'm glad that you couldn't tell what was going through my mind as that was going through. With respect to the first point, the President has made known his wish about that issue for some time. I've been careful always to distinguish between wish and reality. I was clear there in the Oval Office, as I've been clear throughout on behalf of Canadians, that this is never going to happen. Canada is not for sale. It never will be for sale. Some things, as I said in the room, some things are never for sale. And he agreed with that. I distinguish between the two, and then with respect to the importance of reestablishing a constructive relationship for negotiations of a partnership, of an economic and security partnership, which is what we were here for. I look forward, not back, and I think we established a good basis today.
Okay, so very dignified guy, not a great situation that Canada or the United States is in. And I want to let you know that part of the smirk during that press conference was Donald Trump actually saying, you know, we don't need Canada. They're not a big customer of ours. Guys, Canada is our number one trading partner in the globe in terms of exporting goods to. Number one. We sell them the most. Secondly, this idea that he says we don't need Canada to send us things. So in terms of selling, number one trading partner. In terms of things like wood that we need for building homes, Canada supplies like 30%. The man just lied and either doesn't care or that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. If you're not nice to him, he's going to cross his arms and say that's just the way it is. And right now, that's just the way it is. Now, let us move on from that press conference. Since I did reference the dolls, Girls and Their Dolls had another day in the news. And this time it was when the Treasury Secretary, Bissent, was asked again about these dolls. And I want to play this for you. It does feel rather creepy.
The other thing, too, is this reporter behind me was quite snarky the other day when President Trump talked about the girl having
Dolls.
2 dolls. And he said, well, what? President didn't take the question, but he said, what would you tell that girl? And I said, I would tell that young girl that you will have a better life than your parents, that you and your family, thanks to President Trump, can now be confident again that you will have a better life than your parents, which working class Americans had abandoned that idea. Your family will own a home. You will be able to advance. You will have a good education. You will have economic freedom. That's what we are advancing.
Yeah,
Okay, guys, can we just unpack that? Number one, if a strange man with a plastic face, a frozen smile, and no soul started to talk to my daughter about the dolls she had, I'd fucking call the police. It's number one. But number two, really? If a little girl would just have fewer Barbies, then her whole family would be able to have a house? Fuck you, Scott Bessent. Why don't you talk to Donald Trump? If he would lift the tariffs on Canada, her family would be able to afford to build a house. It's not an extra Barbie or colored pencil set, man, that is holding back shared prosperity in this country. Little girls and their dolls and their pencil sets has become the new latte, right? It's the new way to shame women and girls for making purchases that people are going to claim will break the bank. If only little girls would sacrifice a Barbie doll or two, then I know we would be on our way to prosperity. But God forbid we ask Donald Trump to end his idiotic grudges, to stop lying, to end this tariff standoff, to fund things like Head Start and Meals on Wheels. Because let me tell you, Scott Bessent, grandma starving isn't good for the family. Children dying of measles, I mean, that will save money for the family. You know what I'm thinking? The next thing they're going to say is, if only these beautiful little babies and little girls age 11 or 14 would get measles and die, the family wouldn't have to feed them or send them to college. And then the rest of the family could actually finally have a house. Okay, can you tell that I'm furious? I think you can. Okay, let's move on from money to some degree. We have money, we have law, and we have power. They're often very co-mingled. So, I want to say, I want to move on to actually the media, okay, and the money, law, and power thing. And I saw something amazing, and this goes into the legal theme. We have been talking about how Donald Trump is a danger to democracy, and many in the media don't seem to care, right? We have them ignoring the fact that he doesn't think that his oath of office means anything, that he's now decided that he will decide how to interpret the Constitution, this whole constitutional denialism that is bubbling up. You hear J.D. Vance express it. You hear Donald Trump not say those words, but get into that. And so what I think is amazing are reporters who will call out other journalists or commentators. And so yesterday on CNN, Charles Blow, columnist for the New York Times, called out Scott Jennings. And I want you to hear this. Totally nails him. Here we go.
From the very beginning, from 2016, he has believed in executive overreach. We've all seen that. He said it. It was clear. Are you saying now that you don't believe that he believes in executive overreach?
I believe that he believes his mandate from the American people is to solve illegal immigration. And I would ask you the same question in reverse. Did Joe Biden, when he said he would faithfully uphold and execute the laws of this land, not mean it when he decided to let millions upon millions of people into the country? Because he did not execute the laws.
I thought that you were going to squirm out of that question.
I'm not
And
squirming.
yes, you did. And that's why I prepared for it, because I want to read you something. At the core of Trump's candidacy is a call for greater executive authority with willful disregard for the constitutional limits placed on our chief executive. Trump especially promises to force individual companies to do things he wants them to do, or else he promises punishment to those who displease him, which appeals to the miserable man at the airport bar. Do you recognize that?
Yeah, I wrote it.
Exactly.
And here's
so
the deal.
He hasn't
And
changed.
here's
So
the
what
deal.
has changed
And here-
about you?
Oh my God. Scott Jennings wrote that Donald Trump appeals to the angry drunk man at an airport bar filled with grievance, that he didn't want to follow the Constitution. What changed? Because he hasn't. What changed with you? By the way, Charles Blow is no longer a columnist at the New York Times. I want to play that little ending again for you.
It's
'cause
between
so
then
good.
and now.
Hold on. Let's go. Let's go to that part. Okay. Here we go. And by the way, Blow is no longer with the New York Times, but he was.
Prepared for it, because I want to read you something. At the core of Trump's candidacy is a call for greater executive authority with willful disregard for the constitutional limits placed on our chief executive. Trump especially promises to force individual companies to do things he wants them to do, or else he promises punishment to those who displease him, which appeals to the miserable man at the airport bar. Do you recognize that?
Yeah, I wrote it.
Exactly.
And here's the deal.
He hasn't
And
changed.
here's
So
the di-
what has changed
and here-
about you?
And here's the difference between then and now. This country has been invaded. The president was elected
So
to
you
end the
changed your
invasion.
opinion on the Constitution?
My opinion is the president needs to pull every lever he can to solve the illegal
So
immigration
you've answered
crisis.
that question
But
by
here's the-
saying
here's
that
the question.
you don't mind him
Do
being
you
unconstitutional.
believe that
Wow. Wow. That is a pathetic answer. You know that there have been fewer border crossings since Donald Trump was elected. So whatever they're calling an invasion existed before. So Scott Jennings wrote that at a time when he knew the situation. So what has changed with Scott Jennings is the will to power, the desire to buy the fancy clothes and pocket scarves that he's wearing, and to be on television where millions of people are watching him. So, yeah, the way they feel. And now you saw who Scott Jennings is and who Charles Blow is. And my God, I wish we would see more of him. Okay, so on the law topic, this is kind of stunning, but it does track with where Donald Trump is going in terms of civil liberties and where his Justice Department will be going. And I think you just need to watch this, and we will talk on the other side. Here we go.
People who have taken part in, for example, pro-Palestinian protests across the world be concerned about being able to join the World Cup and watching here in the U.S.?
Well, I don't know what you mean by that, but people that have taken part in protests, I think people are allowed to protest. You have to do it in a reasonable manner, not necessarily friendly, but reasonable. Otherwise, Pam will come after you, and you're going to have a big problem. You're going to have a big problem, right, Pam? She's doing a good job, too. Well, my whole team here is doing a fantastic job. We're very proud of them. So, yeah, you have a right to protest, yeah.
Okay. Reasonable manner? No, that is not attached onto the U.S. Constitution. Now, I don't know what he means by reasonable manner. I don't know if that's his stand-in for, no, you can't commit violence or trespass. But I think he means whatever he wants it to mean. And that is of great concern. And not just for Americans, but the context here. They're talking about the fact that the World Cup Championship is coming to the United States. Okay. And I think this is very interesting. I believe it's coming here, if I get the date right, in 2026, right? And it's supposed to be, I think, here in the United States. It's not something that I had been actually focused on, my friends, until this press conference. And so I think that's what's going on here, and it's very weird that you would answer a question in such a way to insult tourists. But it actually gets worse. When JD Vance is asked the same question, it's really astonishing what he has to say as well. So let me actually play this clip. Here we go.
Have visitors probably from close to 100 countries. We want them to come. We want them to celebrate. We want them to watch the game. But when the time is up, they'll have to go home. Otherwise, they'll have to talk to Secretary Noem, who I'll turn it over to now.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you so much.
What? Right. So the World Cup is going to be in the North America. And so one of the hosts will be the US. And I just want to play that for you again. That's nervous laughter. JD Vance actually said, come here for the game, but get the fuck out of here, or you might get arrested and sent to a gulag in El Salvador. Let's look at that again. I mean, it's astonishing. People don't come here. Don't come here.
Visitors probably from close to 100 countries. We want them to come. We want them to celebrate. We want them to watch the game. But when the time is up, they'll have to go home. Otherwise, they'll have to talk to Secretary Noem, who I'll turn it over to now.
Otherwise, I'll have to talk to Secretary Noem, Kristi Noem. Ha, ha, ha. Hand it over to her now. He is joking about these deportations. He's joking about mothers being separated from their children, about people who are in a gulag in El Salvador with no due process. It's not a fucking joke. I know his brain isn't made of oatmeal, but I know that he had his heart surgically removed. I am pretty sure. So this is meant to be an event, a kickoff planning meeting for the World Cup in 2026. And this is the kind of idiocy, the kind of jokes that they are telling, that we're going to violate the law, that we are going to get you on, ha, 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 we'll deport you if you don't fucking get out of here. Really good. Really good. Okay. There still is more. There's more. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more now about power. We still have checks and balances. Congress still has the ability to conduct oversight. And what that means is that people like Secretary Bessent have to appear before congressional committees when they are called to do so. And so I want to share with you what a power play looks like and what a power stalemate looks like. This is Representative Mark Pocan, who himself is a businessman, asking Scott Bessent who pays tariffs. And he's asking the question because, and let me just back up to say, when he says who pays tariffs, he means ultimately who has to absorb the cost of tariffs. That's what Pocan is asking. He wants Bessent to say, ultimately, it's consumers who will eat the cost, right? There's another way to answer the question too, and Bessent doesn't do this either, which is that tariffs tariffs are taxes on imports, and they are typically paid by the business in the United States, if we have a tariff, the business who is importing the goods will typically pay the tariff to the US government, and then they may or may not pass the cost along to consumers. That would be a normal, accurate answer. But Mr. Plastic Face will not do that. He will not answer the question. So I want you to see this power play and this stalemate. But it doesn't matter that he doesn't answer, because you can see what's going on.
Pays tariffs, Mr. Secretary? No. Answer the questions I asked, please. I only have 5 minutes. Who pays tariffs?
Sorry? Well,
Who pays tariffs?
Sorry,
Mr. Secretary, please.
Excuse me.
The question is very simply, who pays tariffs, Mr. Chairman? I'd like him to answer that question.
Well,
He wants to answer other questions.
well, Congressman, if the if the exporters, they dislike tariffs so much, why wouldn't they? If I think what you're trying to get me to say.
Did you remember the question? I'm not sure you did. Who pays tariffs?
That it's a very complicated question.
Reclaiming my time. People pay tariffs, right? Reclaiming my time, Mr. Secretary. Reclaiming my time, Mr. Secretary. Reclaiming my time. You clearly aren't going to answer it. I'm not going to waste my time having you go, Mr. Secretary, reclaiming.
Come on. Bissett wants to complicate something, and he could directly answer it saying, not always complicated, if exporters don't like them, blah, blah, blah. He could say, when a tariff is imposed, here is who it has to be directly paid by. And then he could say, an exporter can choose to lower their cost, right? Obviously, you can't lower your cost to zero, but there's that. And he can say, ultimately, it's passed on to consumers. It's not so hard, but he's stammering and dancing around because he knows, number one, he can't lie to Congress under oath. And number two, that he can't, without losing his job, tell the truth to Congress. So he has to sort of bob and weave. And Pocan said, no, I'm reclaiming my time. So, and he also said, as a businessman, he went on later to say this, he knows what happens when things he needs to import, the prices are raised, he passes them on to consumers. Now, there's something else that Scott Bessent was asked at this congressional hearing. And he was asked about whether there had been any meetings with the Chinese government. And he had to say no. He had to say that. And he didn't hem and haw. Which means that Donald Trump has been lying through his teeth. But then there are people who say, how can you tell if Donald Trump is lying? Are his lips moving? Right. Okay. Sometimes he tells the truth, but Donald Trump is indifferent to the truth. Now, again, that was a power play. And ultimately, although it looks like Bessent won because he didn't have to give up his position of power or say what the congressman wanted him to, he was humiliated, and there is a cost to humiliation. Now, I want to show you another way power is expressed. And let me just play, and then we'll talk on the other side. You really have to watch this. Watch this.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you so much for dreaming big dreams and doing unprecedented things. Your entire life you have stood for doing things that other people thought they couldn't do and accomplishing unprecedented events and achievements. And so this is one of those events that I think is going to be remarkable and will stand the test of time as the world's greatest sporting event ever held and conducted. You are honoring us by agreeing to be the chairman of this event. Well, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you so much for dreaming.
Okay. That lavish praise right there that she offered to Donald Trump, my friends, is a verbal equivalent of filleting him. Yes. What kind of dignity does she have? What is left? No. as a woman, I just find her behavior repulsive. Okay. So, where does this leave us? Money, law, and power. One more thing before we get to Crazy Town. If you can believe it, and I think you can, Donald Trump yesterday tried to blame Barack Obama and Justin Trudeau for the war in Ukraine, and not the way you think they normally do. Let's listen, because it is not saying that if they had been tougher. Usually he says if they'd only been tougher on Putin, there never would have been a war. Now it was if they'd only been nicer. Let's listen. Wait, hold on one second. I got to get rid of some videos. We are doing a lot of videos here. So remember, again, it's usually I'm the tough guy. I'm the only one who can talk tough to Putin. Now it's they should have been nicer to him. Here we go.
Right now, I thought it was a very bad decision. It was headed by Trudeau, by the way, and Obama. They were the ones going on right now.
Okay, let me explain the context. Someone asked Donald Trump, if they knew, I guess he didn't know that Russia wasn't part of the World Cup. And then he mentioned how Russia used to be part of the G8, right? And then it was the G7. Russia was in I think in 1999, they made it the G8. And then again, Russia was pushed out in 2014 after the annexation of Crimea. Okay, so they had a brief period, under 20 years as part of the G8. Okay, so Donald Trump is now complaining about that. And here we go.
I thought it was a very bad decision. It was headed by Trudeau, by the way, and Obama. They were the ones that really fought hard to get Russia out. I think if
First of all, Justin Trudeau became Prime Minister of Canada in 2015. So that was not happening in 2014. However, where Donald Trump might be somewhat correct is that it was they kicked Russia out temporarily, and then it became more permanent years later. But let's continue.
Russia were in, they threw them out. And because of that, maybe millions of people are dying. Millions. The numbers are far greater than you think, but millions of people are dying. If he was sitting around a table with other people, 7 people, hammering him and saying, let's not do this, I think you wouldn't probably have had the problems that you've had.
What nonsense. So first, it's they shouldn't have kicked him out of our club. And second, if he was sitting around the table being hammered by 7 other people. Obviously, Donald Trump doesn't understand how the G8 works, because there's a rotating leadership, and then Russia would be one of the leaders, and they wouldn't really, of the conversation, they really wouldn't be hammering anyone, number one. And number two, he has no sense of history. Russia was kicked out of the G8 because of the invasion and annexation of Crimea in 2014. So they were already sitting around the table for over 15 years at that point. Okay? What this is about is Donald Trump talking about who he is. If you insult me, I might kill 1 million people. That sounds like a normal person who deserves to be at the table. You told me my behavior was bad. I'm at dinner and I'm being rude to the guests, and you say, go home and cool off. And I go home and cool off, and I get a fucking blowtorch, and I blow up the entire house, the entire neighborhood, and I go on a shooting rampage. And Donald Trump wants to say, well, they should have let her stay for dinner. This is who this man is. It's absolutely, absolutely nuts. Okay, guys. Now, I think it actually is, if you can believe it, time for Crazy Town. But before I get to that, I want to let you know that, yes, I did record with Michael Cohen yesterday for his Mea Culpa show. He doesn't stream it live, and I guess the recording will be on Friday. on Midas, on the Midas Touch channel. So when I know a little more on Friday morning, I will drop the link or let you know the time. Very excited about that. Okay, guys, let's do Crazy Town. Here we go. Crazy Town, naturally, is Donald Trump. And this is him trying to explain why, despite him saying, I'm going to do all the deals and they're going to be these great deals, him saying, stop asking me about deals and we set the price. And what he says here makes absolutely no sense. I'm not even going to unpack it. I'm just going to play it for you. Enjoy.
Hoodies. Yeah. Announce later this week. Well, I can announce all of them now. I could announce 50 to 100 deals right now because, I'm the shopkeeper.
Okay. I got
and the hoodies. Yeah. Announce later this week. Well, I can announce all of them now. I could announce 50 to 100 deals right now because, I'm the shopkeeper and I keep the store. And, I know what countries are looking for and I know what we're looking for. And I can just set those terms and they can go shopping or they don't have to go shopping because everybody wants to shop here. This is like a beautiful store. This is like one of Bernard Arnault, or maybe I should say Alex, even more importantly, young, the future. But Bernard's an honor to have you. We'll have a meeting after this. But he has the greatest stores in the world and they want to shop. Our country is the greatest store in the world of that kind. And everybody wants a piece of it. And they took advantage of us for years because we allowed our presidents allowed it to happen. I don't blame China.
It's hard to even respond to that. Are we the shop with the goods or are we customers purchasing these goods? I know we also have stores here. He doesn't actually understand. Not only that, let's just bring this back. Mark Carney had the respect to refer to the citizens of Canada as being the owners of Canada. Donald Trump just referred to himself as being our owner, that America is a store and he is the proprietor. No, my friend. No, my friend. We, the people of the United States of America, is how the preamble of the Constitution begins. And we will take back this country. Enough will be enough. And I look forward to that day. I hope that you will join us because one day there will be massive, not just these little protests, massive protests where millions of people will flood Washington, D.C. and major cities. He will come down. I don't know what it will look like, but it will happen. I promise. But it will take all of us. Okay, and with that, I will leave you until tomorrow. Have a lovely rest of your Wednesday.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Jen Taub Show. Well, welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There was hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Jen Taub Show.